What would you do if God told you to leave everything familiar, your home, your comfort, your security, and go to a place He wouldn't even name? No map, no GPS, no timeline, just a promise. This is the story of a man who walked into the unknown and became the father of faith. This is the story of Abraham. Part 1. The call into the unknown beer. He was Abraham. He was Abram. He lived in a wealthy, advanced city called Ur of the Chaldeans, a prosperous region in ancient Mesopotamia. It was a place of comfort, business, structure, and culture. Abram had security, family, possessions, a predictable future. Then one day, everything changed. In Book of Genesis, chapter 12, God speaks, "Leave your country, your people and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you." Notice something powerful. God didn't tell him where. He didn't give directions. He didn't give coordinates. He didn't give a 5-year plan. Just go. And Abram obeyed. Part 2. Leaving without details. Put yourself in Abram's sandals. No roadmap. No Google search, no guarantee except a voice and a promise. God promised, "I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you." But here's the problem. Abram was 75 years old. His wife Sarai was barren. They had no child. How do you become a great nation with no heir? Faith doesn't always make sense. Faith obeys before it understands. Abram packed his tents. He gathered his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all his possessions, and he started walking toward Canaan, though he didn't know it at first. Part 3. Faith is a journey, not a moment. Abram's life teaches us something powerful. Faith is not a one-time decision. It is a daily walk. When he arrived in Canaan, guess what? There was famine. The land God promised had problems. Sometimes obedience leads you straight into discomfort. Abraham even went down to Egypt to survive. He made mistakes. He doubted. He tried to protect himself. Faith does not mean perfection. It means persistence. God remained faithful even when Abraham struggled. Part 4. Separation from Lot. As Abraham's wealth increased, conflict arose between his herdsmen and Lot's. So Abraham did something radical. He let Lot choose first. He trusted that God's promise didn't depend on grabbing opportunities. Lot chose the fertile plains near Sodom. Abraham stayed in the rugged land. Here's the lesson. When you trust God, you don't have to manipulate outcomes. God reaffirmed the promise. Look north, south, east, and west. All the land you see, I will give to you. Faith allows you to release control. Part 5. Waiting on the promise. Years passed. Still no child. Still no heir. Still just a promise. Abraham is now in his 80s. Can you imagine? Trusting decade after decade. In Genesis 15, God takes Abraham outside and says, "Look up at the sky and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, so shall your offspring be." The Bible says, Abraham believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. Faith is believing before you see evidence. Part 6. When faith gets impatient, waiting is hard. So Sarai suggests a plan. She gives her servant Hagar to Abraham so they can help God fulfill the promise. Hagar bears a son, Ishmael, but Ishmael was not the promised child. Sometimes when we don't see movement, we manufacture solutions. But God doesn't need human shortcuts. At 99 years old, God appears again. He changes Abram's name to Abraham, meaning father of many nations. He changes Sarai to Sarah and promises, by this time next year, Sarah will have a son. Abraham laughed, Sarah laughed, but God was serious. Part 7. The miracle chilled at 100 years old. Abraham holds his miracle, Isaac, the promised son. The child born not from human strategy, but divine timing. God fulfills what he promises. Not when it's convenient, not when it's logical, but when it reveals his power. Part 8. Trusting God with what you waited for. Now comes the ultimate test. In Book of Genesis chapter 22, God says, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and sacrifice him." Pause. The promise, now asked to be surrendered. The blessing, placed on the altar. Abraham doesn't argue. He doesn't delay. He wakes up early. He walks 3 days to Mount Moriah. Every step must have felt heavy, but he tells his servants something powerful. "We will go up and worship, and we will come back." Faith speaks confidence even when circumstances scream loss. Part 9. The ram in the thicket. Abram binds Isaac, raises the knife, and at the last second God stops him. Do not lay a hand on the boy. A ram is caught in the thicket. God provides. Abraham names the place. The Lord will provide. Faith without a map does not mean walking without provision. It means trusting that provision will appear at the right time. Part 10. What Abraham teaches us today. Abraham's story is not just ancient history. It is a blueprint. 1. You won't always get full details. God gives direction, not always explanation. 2. Comfort is often the enemy of destiny. Abraham had to leave to step into purpose. 3. Delay does not mean denial. 25 years passed before Isaac was born. 4. Don't create Ishmaels while waiting for Isaac. Trust God's timing. 5. Be willing to surrender even the promise. Real faith says, "God, I trust you more than the gift." Part 11. Trusting God without a map in your life. Maybe you're in a season where you don't know what's next. You feel called to leave something. You're waiting for a promise. You're walking through uncertainty. Abraham's life whispers, keep walking. You don't need the whole map. You need the next step. Faith is not knowing where you're going. It's knowing who is leading you. Part 12. The legacy of a man who walked by faith. Beckhouse. Abraham trusted without a map. Nations were born. Kings came from his line. And through his lineage would come Jesus Christ. His obedience shaped history, and it started with one step. Closing scene. Sunset. Desert wind. Hopeful music rising. Narrator strong. Inspiring tone. God may not show you the entire picture. He may not explain every turn, but if he called you, he will guide you. If he promised you, he will fulfill it. Abraham didn't have a map. He had a word, and that was enough. So the question is not, do you know where you're going? The question is, do you trust the one who's leading you? Take the step, trust without the map, and watch God write a story bigger than you ever imagined. End screen text. Faith is stepping out when you don't see the staircase. If this message inspired you, share it. Someone else may need the courage to walk without a map today.